You're listening to the Fitness Rants Podcast, the show where unfiltered conversations meet real-world health and fitness.
We cut through the noise and deep dive into the truth behind health, nutrition, physique development, and the fitness industry itself.
We're your hosts, Ross Gilmore and Malin Blumdahl, experienced coaches and educators who have been part of the fitness industry for over 15 years.
If you're a coach, high performer, or someone just tired of mainstream nonsense, you're in the right place.
Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Fitness Rants Podcast, and today I'm joined by a slightly different co-host today, Mr. Will Blackshaw, sort of almost like coming in from Mal today. She is otherwise engaged for today, so that's people right. Probably be thinking this is meant to be one of our regular ongoing episodes, and then they're going to be like, hold on, that doesn't look like Mal.
Yeah, we sent Mal home after the session today.
She just she wasn't up for it all, was she?
No. Too much rain.
Yeah, but we're actually lucky. We were thinking we were going to end up coming here in a canoe.
Yeah, it's not needed in Dubai, really, is it?
No, everyone comes here for the sun. They don't expect this is going to happen.
Yeah, good month to move there, really.
It's been quite eventful. Maybe that's something we should leave for another time, though.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
This could end up becoming the podcast about, just to give people context that whenever you listen to this, because people do sometimes listen to these episodes a month after, especially if they're new to the show. We've went through a period of time now where there's a regional conflict going on at the moment. There's a war happening. There's been some quite adverse weather stuff going on.
Tornadoes soon, I reckon.
Apparently, that's what they say. So yeah, it's been and you've had your own stuff that you've had when you've came here, like delayed visas and all that stuff. So to say it's been an eventful first month.
Oh yeah, great first experience, but we're still here. So
we're still trucking along.
That's it.
So when I realised that Mal wasn't going to be able to make it today, I thought, like, Will and I have been sort of starting to get to know each other since you've moved here. We've started training more often together. And of course, we share some commonalities as far as our backgrounds and experiences. In terms of people we know in the industry, of course, we have quite a few
definitely
common acquaintances. But I think something that was very evident straight away was that we very much believe in the art of personal training. Yeah, and it's an art that feels like it's almost in a way, I'm not going to say it's a lost art, but certainly it's getting to a point in the industry now where, or at least it has done for the past 5 years, where many are seeing online coaching more as like a golden ticket. They're sort of seeing it as, right, well, that is the elite level to get to once you're online. Forget about personal training. I think we have a slightly different perspective on
100%.
What personal training actually is, and it's less about one being better than the other and more about them being different vehicles for delivering service offering as a coach. So I think that's going to be a good place to start is, and first of all, just why don't you introduce yourself? Because this is your first time, obviously, speaking to our audience.
That's it.
So get into it.
So obviously, I'm Will, or Willie B, and I've been a PT for 14 years, and it feels like that's a long time. But yeah, obviously, I started PTing at like some small commercial gym, and obviously, I've been doing it ever since. And throughout my career, I've kind of expanded into other gyms, and my last gym was FLF, which is a very renowned gym in Manchester. And what I saw in there was a very high standard of in-person coaching. And, you know, if you're in that gym and you're coaching people and you're doing stuff wrong, you get called out for it. And I don't think there's any other gym that I've ever worked at where they ever do that. And it was so good to see because, you know, if someone's bailing on a hack squat and, you know, the form's off, you get pulled in the office. And it might sound harsh, but you learn from your mistakes and you become a better coach for it. And I guarantee you every single person that works there will be better than 90% of the PTs I see day to day in most other gyms.
It's funny, you know, like places like that, like not necessarily FLF because it doesn't have the same public notoriety that places like Ultimate Performance might have.
Yeah, Ultimate Performance is another example.
So that would be an example where people know there's a standard that is held in there. Now, whether, and we can maybe know from secondhand experience, there are going to be also good and bad trainers in those environments as well. But the one thing that no one can argue is that there is a culture, very specific culture of results. And with a culture of results comes standards.
Yes,
even if
exactly.
Those standards are not applied as equally across the board. And of course, like any business, any personal training gym, there's going to be more experienced coaches and less experienced coaches. And that's just part of the deal. But I think this is something that at least when I saw, and I felt it was missing even when I got into personal training, same as you, 14 years back. Well, actually 15 years at this point.
Just about picked me there.
Just about, because I was only PTing for a year before I actually moved to Dubai. And I've been in Dubai for 14 years as of May. So I think it was a year and a half PTing, then moved to Dubai. So yeah, it's just over 15 years, not much. It's like very minimal in it. And I found even back then, the one thing that was really missing in a commercial gym is that there's no accountability. You can just crack on as you see fit. The only thing that you were held accountable for by the gym was, are you paying your rent? Or if you were working for the gym, which I didn't until I actually came out here. My first job working for the gym as an employee was actually Fitness First when I moved here. So you had your KPIs, you had your session targets you had to hit every month. Outside of that, like, that's the only accountability you got. You never got held accountable to the standard of your sessions. As long as you were hitting those monthly numbers, you were good. Whereas a gym like FLF in places like UP, and even a place that I was a director of training at one point in Body, it's a very different lens that you view 100%. That delivery through, because the result becomes so central to your KPIs. It's not about just how many sessions did that trainer deliver a month. You would have been in a position where it's like, how many transformations have you delivered this month?
Yeah, 100%. And where is everyone at?
Yeah.
And I think obviously even with that, it's like, yeah, you might have KPIs and sales targets, but they will be better if you're delivering a better service. And, you know, these gyms are expensive. Ultimate Performance and FLF, they're not cheap, but they have more clients than most gyms. And that's because they have a reputation, and it's a good reputation. And they have very good trainers, and they obviously, they deliver results, and they're world-class results as well. Like, you're losing like 40, 50 kilos in 6 months, and they're looking, like complete different people. So it's like, it's a force to be reckoned with in regards to like standards in the gym, in the fitness industry, I think.
100%. I think a big part of those standards, and like we could argue about the accuracy of mechanics, whatever else, but I think one of the big lessons is effort. These people are really exposed to, there's a high level of effort every single time you walk through the doors of this gym. There's an expectation of you. You're coming here to train hard, you're coming here to get a result. But then there's a consistency that comes with that as well, because of, like you said, the financial commitment, because of the time commitment, the effort commitment. They're just so much more invested into that process than potentially coming into a gym where, and don't get wrong, some people, I was one of those people where, one of those trainers that I was in a commercial gym, but you have to then sort of create your own culture within that gym, because if you don't,
you'll be left behind.
Exactly, 100%. So I think that for me, whenever young trainers reach out, or new trainers tend to reach out and ask, like, where would you recommend going to get off to the best possible start? The funny thing is, the first thing I'll say is look for a gym like UP. If it's not UP, if you haven't got UP where you're from, find the closest thing to it and go and work with them, even if it means you're getting paid 20% of your session rates.
I did actually have an interview at UP.
Oh, you did?
But UP's obviously, I understand, and I'm not slating them, but I think for me, because I've been in the industry for quite a while, then I went there, they have certain things that they do, and that is it. Whereas FLF were a bit more like, be yourself, do your own thing, but make sure you stay within our like rules, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not like, this is the only way you do things, and that's it. And I was like, I had the interview and I was like, yeah, this is not for me. It's a bit more like, I was like, I put a bagel in a meal plan, and they were like, why have you put a bagel in a meal plan? I was like, have you ever had a bagel, mate? They're wicked.
They're quite delicious, really.
So it's like, I was like, why are we talking about this? So it's like, I felt like they're kind of almost just a bit too regimented.
A bit one-dimensional.
But also, like, if you're new to the industry, that's probably what you need. Remove the bullshit and just be like, do this, get the results, learn how to actually train people. That'd be great for someone that's new. Whereas if you've been in the industry and you kind of know a thing or two, it might be a bit like, hang on a minute, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think what we don't want this to come across as is that we're slating UP, but I think, the longer you've been in the industry, there's definitely things that if you were to take from their approach, we'd be not particularly agreeing on
certain things.
Quite a lot of the stuff, especially even related to the appropriateness of certain training protocols with clients. Is that going to be the best? Like, for example, every single session them having to get absolutely drilled. Well, that sort of ignores things like auto-regulation and allostatic load. And so, of course, the more experience you get, but I also understand why that structure has to exist, because if you give the trainers too much room, it also means that there's less guarantee that you're going to be able to produce the result. 100%. And if you have a system that works, then why not use it? Pardon me.
But
protein doing me dirty a second time.
Mate, that got me off guard.
Just before we got into the the lift to come up here, I'm opening this. I was like, how was that? Well, literally popped the lid open, and massive spurt.
Drowned himself in protein.
I don't know if you can see it in the camera.
I had a mouthful of it, and I nearly spat it everywhere in the lift. So yeah, that'd have been a good start.
That's just repeating back on me now. I'm like, twice. But yeah, I think places like that, I always recommend, like, if you can go into an environment where you're going to be scrutinized, you're going to be held to a standard, whereas commercial gyms are just not going to give you that.
100%. And also the outside kind of aspect of like, yes, you come in the gym, you get 3 sessions per week with this plan, but we communicate with our clients every day. Like when I was at FLF, we messaged clients every morning. Hiya, you're right, how you doing? What's your weight today? And it sounds a bit negative, but like every day you're going to get that. And there's nothing more that's going to keep you accountable than that. It's okay, send me a few pictures when you go out for a meal this week. So that, you know, when they're eating out, and it's like, oh, well, I went to this place. Yeah, I had a chicken and veg. And it's like, well, send me a picture then, mate. And it's like, that's going to keep people on the ball. And that's how they kind of shape people. It's like, they can't, there's no kind of foot off the gas at any point.
Yeah. And I think the problem is what you'll get is some of the body positivity people, or the sector of the industry which is very much about getting away from the emphasis being on your aesthetic and physique, and there's almost like the coaches that deal with like relationship with food and all that stuff. And so you get that side of the industry would look at what you just said now, think, oh, that's going to create eating disorders or disordered eating, that's going to create, you know, obsession with food and whatever else. I think this is where tricky people like to be in their camps, and they like to project their biases, right? All that sort of tells me what you're talking about now is that that's just a high level of accountability that those clients have been held to.
That's exactly it.
If you're touching base with them daily, like, you're not expecting perfection every day, you're just expecting feedback, you're expecting data, right?
I think communication is a massive thing of like, when you get the client to start communicating with you, that's when you understand that they actually really want this, or they don't as well. Because it's like, if they're not replying for 2-3 days, and then you're looking at the scale weight and it's like, oh, well, we're on 1,400 calories, for instance, and you've gone up this week. We know, like, we're not dumb. We're like, well, we know he's lying now.
And you're seeing them in person, right? Which I think is interesting segue into, clearly, and especially from COVID onwards, it exploded. Like, already online was starting to become a bit of a thing. I mean, I'm sure you saw this as well, certainly with us being here in Dubai since 2012. As we got to around about 2017, roughly then, online was just starting to become a bit of a thing. Just at that point, the first sort of business mentors were starting to...
There was no Loom though. No Loom then.
There was no Loom. There was no Loom, definitely not. And there wasn't really any coaching apps for that purpose either. So online wasn't really a thing. And then it started picking up a bit. COVID happened and it just put it on steroids. Literally did. Like, it just accelerated the number of online coaches, people building online platforms, developers of apps who created platforms for online coaches to use labels. So, well, I mean, that's a whole separate... soul destroying. Never in my life again to ever want to be doing Zoom sessions with people. But really, like, that was sort of like a worldwide event that it really was like instrumental in sort of changing the way that people viewed coaching. I don't think necessarily for the bad. I think online coaching has brought a lot of good to the space.
100%.
But, and this is something we were talking about a bit off air, many have started to look at online as almost being above or elite. It's almost like that, right? That's the top level of what you can get to aspire to as a coach. Whereas I think what that overlooks is it overlooks what has ultimately been the main vehicle of coaching for years and years, which
the foundation,
which I feel is getting lost, is that person-to-person connection. Now, the big advantage you had with FLF was that, okay, you might have been touching base with your clients every day by message, but you're also seeing them 2-3 times a week. Was it always 3, or was there 2?
It's always 3. But like, that's again another massive aspect of, like, when you know they're kind of falling off plan, we take them in the office, and like, depending on the person is the approach you'd have. Like, I might be like, look, what's up? Like, obviously you've not been responding. Is everything all right? You're struggling with this. Obviously, if they've got family issues, you talk through that. And then, but obviously, if they're a bit of a geezer, I'll be like, look, mate, what are you playing at?
Yeah.
Like, it's been 4 days. You've gone up 1.5 kilos. What are you doing? You're paying this my money. You're wasting my time. And then, but then again, both approaches are very different, but they both work for certain people. Yeah. And that's, again, something that not many other places would do. And that's something that I've carried into my coaching now, that I feel like has made a massive difference as well. Yeah, because you're obviously doing some online stuff now as well, right? But you did that after having had a long foundation of getting good at reading people and building rapport with people face to face. And so I think that sort of one of the things that was an interesting discussion point for us is, well, do we feel that PT is almost having a bit of a resurgence again? Because I think, in a way, and AI has a lot to do with this. I think the sort of, not advent, but certainly the very exponential growth of AI use by individuals in the fitness industry. And we were just having a discussion about such a use just before we came in here. Yeah. Well-known, well-established coaches now turning to AI. And you can tell as
not even being subtle about the fact that it's just a copy and paste off of ChatGPT.
These people got 100 200K followers and they're coaches and they're using AI to coach like high level clients as well.
Crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But I think one of the questions that often then comes up is, well, do we have anything to worry about when it comes to the growth of AI? And I think we'll start with the in-person. I think first things first, AI can't replace a physical human.
No.
Especially when it comes to a service like in-person, because what you can get out of someone on the gym floor will never be replaced by even the best online coaching. Not to blow my own trumpet, but I like to think I've got pretty good systems and I deliver a good service online. But even then, and regardless how good I am at the mechanics side of things, how good I am at form checks and being able to get efficient at trying to extract better outcomes from that client as quickly as physically possible, I could be going back and forth for 2-3 videos to really nail that down. That's going to take us, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe sometimes. Can do the same process in about 10 minutes in person when I'm hands-on, because as you know, it's instantaneous feedback. You're seeing 100%. It live in person 3D. You can cue, you can adjust. That person comes away with so much more value from that session. So for the coaches that are almost either coming into the industry and going straight online, having never coached people in person, you don't have that physical frame of reference of what it's like to actually coach someone through a problem and get a actual positive solution at the end of it. So AI is never going to replace in-person. No. So I think if you're an in-person coach purely, I think, as long as you're good and as long as you continue to upskill, I think if anything, this is a time to double down on that, because people are starting to crave a bit more of that. It's like
a sink or swim kind of
very
moment,
much.
Isn't it?
I think people are starting to seek that human connection because it can't be faked. You see someone face to face, they can't be sitting with doing your check-in and on the other screen they've got a script or whatever else. They can't hide behind the technology. So I think if you're a good in-person coach, you're safe. But are online coaches at danger with the AI side of things as well? Well, I think, again, if you're really good, and I genuinely believe it's a huge skill. Not all personal trainers are equipped to do online either.
No,
I've seen that. I've seen many personal trainers try to do the jump to online, and you literally find them 6 months later, a year later, they're back to filling up their books with PT. And there's a very good reason that you need to have a certain skill set to be capable of delivering a service online, because you need to try and develop what you were talking about with the touch points. You need to do that as an online coach, but now you don't have that face-to-face to be able to even further compound on top of that rapport and that sort of touch points that you're doing just from message. So you have to be able to create that via videos, via voice notes, via maybe team calls with your group of clients. So you have to find different ways to be able to create that same rapport with the client, but just even if you're never meeting them face-to-face. So again, if you've got the skill set, I also don't think that AI is going to replace good online coaches, but I definitely think that these coaches who are doing the
100%
chat GPT, it's going to become really obvious and it is going to wash those people out, or at least they're going to get found out at some point.
And obviously with the AI as well, like in person is like, it can't really touch it because it's so personal. Obviously, like you have your way of speaking to people, I have my way, and you have your own personality and I have mine. And it's like people actually come to you just for that.
Yeah.
And AI will never replace that. So that's one thing you can always rely on. If you've got a certain way about you, actually lean on that instead of worrying about certain other things. But obviously, yes, you got to be a good coach. With regards to like online, I think obviously AI is it's just becoming AI almost, because like you said, people copy and paste an AI onto plans, but that's where doing the consultation is the biggest thing for me. Of like, if I don't do a consultation with you, how am I going to make a plan? I could make a plan. Like I could just give you the same plan I gave to the last guy. But it's like that consultation is like, oh, you got a bit of a lower back issue. Okay, right. We're not going to whack in RDLs with 0 reps in reserve at the start of the plan. You know what I mean? It's like, but certain other people would, because they just copy and paste. And exactly. I think that,
or you've got a gut issue, or not just going to put you in with like 2.4 grams of protein per kilo right at the start, because probably not going to be able to digest that very well. So,
but I feel like, obviously with the AI of like, well, bad online coaches, when they get a new client, the first couple of weeks might be okay, but that longevity will show, and the results will show, because are they going to be looking at training performance? Are they going to be doing form videos? Are they going to be taking care of your digestion, sleep management, stress management? Are they going to be doing all these things that make a massive difference at the end? They don't make a difference at the start, because you can lose 10 kilos. Anyone can coach someone to do that. But it's like, are you going to look good when it's all off? Probably not. 100%. If you're not managing all those things.
I think like you said with the AI thing is that it's, it can do incredible things. I think it's only going to continue to evolve. And I think that's why some coaches should be scared, because it is going to get scarily good. And in some respects, it is already very good at certain things. But I think if you think about it, when you're working with a human being, it's all fine and well, you can have the data. But marrying the data with the human being is a completely different thing. Like
100%.
No AI can comprehend what it is to take that individual and their own personal experiences and how they feel and whatever else, and combine that with the data that you're logging, for example. So the thing I've often said to my clients, and even because most of my clients are coaches themselves, and they're a bit like, oh, like, is there anything that I should do to safeguard against this? And I was just like, well, AI is never going to be able to replace what you said. Huge part that gets overlooked, your personality, can never be you. It's never going to take over experience. AI can't learn your lived experience and what you've been through in the hundreds and thousands of hours you've done delivering sessions and the hundreds of conversations that you've had with clients. Can never ever replicate that. And it can't replicate expertise.
No.
Because ChatGPT, yes, can pull from a wide pool of knowledge, but it can't take that and use it in an applied sense to the person in front of you. And so I think when you look at that, like, even as sophisticated as AI gets, it's never going to be able to do that as well as a coach can if they have a really strong human connection with their clients.
Oh, definitely. A human connection is sort of probably what we've got to rely on in person, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's not hard, to be honest.
So let's talk a little bit, because we've spoken a little bit about the combination and the hybrid of in-person and online, touching on standards, coming all the way back to the start of the conversation where we spoke about places like FLF, UP, or trainers who actively go out and invest in their education. They almost seek direct accountability. For me, one of my reasons I hired Cal back in the day, even though I was working in a gym and I was managing that gym, for me, I wanted to have someone that could hold me accountable. So I sort of sought accountability, and you'll find that all the good trainers, the trainers that last a long time in this industry, they don't wait for the accountability to happen. They go and they seek out. 100%. Because you and I both know that when you get put under a microscope and you're scrutinized for how you do things, you only get better.
Yeah.
But they say pressure creates diamonds and all that, whatever the cliche sort of analogies are. But it's very true. Like, you have to be put in situations where you may not actually know 100% the answer.
But you've got to find out.
Or you've got to think on your feet and be able to come up with a solution there and then. And so I think that's part of what in-person does. But speaking to those standards, what have you seen, not only back in the UK, but since you've come to Dubai, what are maybe things that, to you, behaviours-wise, or common trends that you've seen when you've been in the gyms, don't speak to particularly good standards for trainers? What are bad habits that many...
Where do I start? So it's like... I remember coming to Dubai for the first time in like 2020 during COVID, and you remember that Train by Beach Club? Was it?
Train Beach.
Train Beach Club. Very good gym, really good equipment. And I was walking around there, I was like, this is a nice place to be. And there was a trainer in there, had a client that was in pretty good shape. So, you know, she was an advanced client, like, you know what I mean, like compared to most people. And there was 2 steps in between, like the upper body stuff and the lower body stuff.
That's right.
And she was doing toe taps on that. Like she's from some sort of like Call On Me music video.
Jane Fonda 80s aerobic routine.
I was just watching it. I was like, what is going on? Like, how is this actually happening? How could you explain that? If I pulled her aside and said, why is she doing that? What would she say?
I can only imagine she might say something like, because this is something that I've seen even up till fairly recently. You speak to some trainers from certain backgrounds, like, well, if they're doing that in between their sets, they're burning more calories. So it's that super hyper focus on burning calories.
Yeah, okay.
Which is one of the first things you would usually say to clients: listen, your training is not about burning calories, it's about creating
we're not here for that.
All the stuff we do outside of here, your steps, your cardio, etc., your food, that takes care of that side of things. You're here to build freaking muscle, get strong. Yeah,
and obviously it's just like the standard of like actually taking the client through a good setup, you know what I mean? Taking time to show them an exercise, not just putting them on something and being like, yeah, just go on then, mate. There you go, do some leg extensions there. It's like, it's such a massive thing to do. And it's like when that client sees, you know, maybe me or you taking our clients through a session, they're going to be like, hang on a minute, why are they doing that? And that is a thing. Like, how many times have you...
It's funny, you do see people doing that, but it's still, I was going to say annoys. And I actually will say, it does annoy me, because I think to myself, how much cognitive dissonance do you really need to have to be literally, and for example, take even Train, the regular one that's now Kuz, right? They've got, I think, 4 leg extensions or 3 leg extensions literally side by side. And you know, the typical, like, the trainer would be standing there and he'd be like, arms folded, you know, looking like he'd rather be anywhere but in that session that client is paying money for. Who knows how much, but they're paying for that time. Some are maybe even on their phones, like looking at Instagram or WhatsApp or maybe even Tinder. I've seen some coaches doing during a client's paying time, which is
that's productive.
That's classy.
Get more clients on there.
Well, yeah, but there you go. That's maybe what it was. It was a lead gen strategy. It's just efficiency. But literally the client is throwing the weight up and down in that leg extension, just an example. And the client can clearly, like you say, they've maybe had a look and they can see that you've got the tempo, the control. You can see our client that was working very, very hard. It's a productive set, but nothing. It just goes.
But I think that just goes to show of like, yes, there isn't really anything to worry about in regards to in-person PT because there's still so many people learning. I think, obviously, for me and you, we probably follow people on social media that are just more knowledgeable than us and better than us. So we always think that is now the standard, when in reality, there's so many people that are walking in that gym and they don't have a clue. And when they get a trainer, they think that person is going to be the most knowledgeable person in the world. In reality, they could be their first 3 months of training and they've just got their qualification online, or they don't even have one and they're an online coach. And now they're just like, I do a bit of in-person now. And it's like, that could be it.
Like you say, no certifications, and that's actually far more common than people realize as well. Like
100%.
They've been a competitor and then they've went from competing to I'm going to be an online coach, and then from online coach to I'm just going to take people through in-person sessions.
Yeah, not that I think that the personal training qualification is like an amazing, but at the same time, you should at least gone through some sort of process.
At the end of the day,
or been in the industry for a long time anyway, and been like, I've competed a couple of times. I've been coached by X, Y, and Z people. I kind of know some sort of process. Not, I got lean once, now I get everyone else lean.
Yeah, the analogy I give with the whole, because I get it. Like most of us know, and certainly from my background with teaching for RTS and having done education in other avenues as well for different topics, we firmly believe that the level 3, it really it does not at all equip you for being able to coach people.
It doesn't.
However, it's kind of like the equivalent of you can give someone a keys to a car and they could learn to drive the roads. Like they could learn how to drive, or they could have been taught from their parents how to drive, and then they go out and drive a car without a driving license. But that doesn't mean that it's not the right way to go about it. At the end of the day, you would still have to go through your lessons. You would still have to go through your exam. You'd have to be right. You've passed your test to be able to drive. Same thing with level 3 is, okay, it doesn't and let's be honest, when you pass your driving test and you're out on the road, you're still very inexperienced. You've still got to put the time in and learn to become a good driver. But it's the same with coaching. Like you've still got to go through, you still got to tick that box. You still got to get that certification because it's a process. It's part of your earning your stripes.
And so I think why learning your mistakes as well, like really learning your mistakes.
100%. It's like, why is someone not so good that they don't feel like they have to go through the same process that everyone else has to go through? Yeah, sure, it might be a bit of a tick box exercise, but it's the process and it's where you start. And then at the very least, what it will highlight to you is, geez, like there's still so much more that I need to be able to do after this to be able to become a good coach.
I remember when my first job, and I remember going to my first day after finishing college, I was terrible, awful. But like I said, it's like I got chucked into doing 8 hours a day, face to face, straight up. So it's like I learned very quickly, but I had to learn through making mistakes and getting told off and getting pulled to the side and being like, don't do that, don't do this. But it's like, I'm quite good at owning my mistakes, but I think a lot of people aren't, and they're not humble in regards of, I think personal trainers is kind of that job of like, oh, I'm a personal trainer. It's like, well, yeah, but it's not actually like, you're just training someone in a gym, mate. You work at fucking the gym group. Chill out, bro. So it's like, you're a personal trainer, but it's not like, I think people glorify it sometimes. It's like they're trying to make their job feel like they're their strength and conditioning coach to some degree. It's like, you've done your level 3, mate. That's it. It's like, and you've done 1 year in the industry, whereas we've done like 14, and I'm still learning. I've just done the ICM course. I would do another course. I would, I'd go to Denver and do the CASIM in-person course. Like I'd always be up for doing stuff like that. But I think people never do that. They'll get in the industry and do zero education and just go from personal kind of experience and thought processes as well.
Those are two very good threads to pull on. So the first one being humble when you first come into the industry. And like it's amazing how many have 1, 2, 3 years experience, especially if they've maybe come from some form of training or fitness background and then come into the industry and just feel like they've got it all figured out. But like you just touched on, like we're both like 14, 15 years into the industry, and I always use the analogy of once you open one door, 2 other doors appear. It's like, okay, you might go into a new level of knowledge, but once you do,
There's still so much
There's
don't know.
still so much more that you can explore. Now, don't get me wrong, the question sometimes will get pushed back from some of these less informed individuals as well. How much do I really need to know to be able to get results? It's a fair question. Like, you're going to have to get your knowledge to such a point where it serves the need to get you the results that you're trying to get, and it depends on the level of clients you're working with, whatever else. But I also think that's just the mindset of a professional. If you're a fitness professional versus a personal trainer, online coach, a fitness professional treats their job exactly that, as a profession. So like any other profession, if you look at medicine, law, whatever it is, there's continued professional development, CPDs, as we know the acronym, that they must do in order to maintain
and there's none
license, whatever else. Whereas in the fitness industry, and don't get me wrong, there's been bodies that are certifying bodies that have tried to, put that in place, like reps.
Yeah.
But the problem is that
reps.
companies like that just get laughed at now because they're just like, well, it's just a money making scheme. It's
And
a waste
also,
of time.
Like some of the reps qualifications aren't really that good.
No, like, well, if you even look at some of the endorsed courses that you get from the certifying bodies, it's often, do this TRX course. And there's no shade on TRX, all the functional training stuff, but sometimes the courses they're just there to be sold rather than, well, what is this actually adding to your toolbox as a coach?
Yeah, that's the thing is, I used to think that I've like, I've got my kettlebells now.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah. When was the last time I'd used kettlebells? No, I haven't.
But the problem is with those was that the sort of key takeaway was that it was just about collecting certifications. Then it was like, well, how does this actually apply
scouts.
to me? Producing exactly, just collecting all the badges and whatever else. What does this actually contribute to me delivering positive, actual, tangible outcomes to my clients? So I think that's the first thing, is coming in as a trainer and being humble, knowing that this is going to be a constant progression of learning for as many years as you exist in this industry. And I think if you can come in with that mindset, that already is going to set you apart from many who just believe that they come in and they've got nothing else. Because this was going to be a thing, I wonder if you noticed this as well. I've certainly seen that almost now. If I think about many of the coaches I follow, there's many that see that you can see them away doing courses, education, whether it be online, in person, or a bit of both. But there are quite an alarming number of coaches that you never see them go and study anything, ever. Just they're talking about, their own stuff, they're recording content. They spend probably more money and time on filming content for Instagram, but you never really see any studying. And if you ask them, like, for example, they're like, but I study my own stuff. It's like, but hold on a minute here. It's like with coaches though. That's why I do strongly believe that all coaches need a coach at some point.
100%.
Who's holding you accountable to what you're learning? Because you could be learning, but you're in your own echo chamber, and it doesn't mean that the information you're learning is either correct or that you're applying, even if it was correct, that you're applying it in a correct way.
That's what I said, is knowledge is nothing without application, is it?
100%.
Like, that's the main thing I found, is like, you can learn all you want, but if you're not applying it to people in front of you, then you will probably forget at some point.
So that was sort of, I suppose, the first thread, is that the trainers need to actually come in, be humble, hold themselves accountable. But then the next is, well, what is it that then would allow them to actually become trainers that hold themselves to a higher standard? Like, what are going to be the behaviors that you would say that, okay, this would be positive sets of behaviors that these trainers should really be modeling to become better trainers? Like, if you were to walk into, like, for example, take a trainer who's new, maybe doesn't have the experience, the systems, the know-how, versus someone who's a smooth operator. Like, you can tell they come into the gym and they've got everything down pat. Like, what does an experienced high standard trainer look like when it comes to delivering a session?
I think obviously the tracking people's training is such a simple thing, but you don't see people doing it.
But that also means that you actually have to have a program in place to begin with as well.
And that, like, ideally having like a program and obviously tracking progression.
Yeah.
Or regression. It doesn't necessarily have to be just progression, but like actually like taking notes, like, and I use it for like seat setting, setup of the machine. It's like, it's really simple, but people don't do that. So that person hops onto a machine and you set it up differently every time. You're going to get different feedback every time as well. And like, we used to do that in FLF, of like, everyone has an iPad, everyone tracks everything.
Yeah.
And then we'd even take form videos and put them into the education group and be like, right, what do you think of this? Is there any chance what do you reckon I could do to improve this? Like, how often do you see people doing that? Never. But obviously the outside help as well. I feel like if someone's in person, you should still do check-ins and be like, right, here's a check-in form every week. I want you to give me all your feedback. And whether you do the check-in in person and talk to them or give them a Loom feedback, it doesn't matter. But it's like, how long are you going to coach someone? And I'm not understand that they might have outside stress, like might have other issues going on, and you're just trying to batter them in the gym 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a massive key part. I still give all my clients check-ins, whether it's in person or not. Yeah, some of them might not do it, but like, it's there. And I think that holds the coach accountable as well, of making sure you're constantly kind of pushing them towards where they should be going at least. And then I think after that, I think the check-in should cover a lot of things as well. Like, you got to understand that, like, if you do this as a coach, you can have all the answers you need.
Or at least a good place to start.
Exactly. And then obviously, just communication in the session, actually listening to your client, understanding, if they are having pain somewhere, why, and actually trying to kind of figure it out, not be like, just get on with it, mate. Like, obviously, yes, there is certain times where you need to tell people to shut up and just get on with it. But, if someone's got certain pain during leg press or this, it's like, is the execution where it needs to be? And, well, we can look at most PTs in the industry and say no. But I think that's one massive part as well. Just, the execution in the gym and making sure that the client's actually doing what they need to be doing, warming the client up properly.
Making sure they're actually prepared for what they're about to do.
Yeah, warming the client up. How many times have I seen people just put plate on and be like, yeah, you go, mate, hop on now. I'm like, God, like, such a simple kind of bottom of the line thing to do with your clients.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff you touched on there is almost like 2 components to it, and you sort of got there before. I would have eventually tried to tease this out of you later with another question about the hybrid approach to coaching, and I think many personal trainers still don't do this. They sort of do the in-person session, and then the other 23 hours are left to chance. I explain that if you're training someone 3 times a week and that's 1 hour, that's literally, for that individual, it's like, I'll make sure I get the percentage right now, 1.7% of their total week. Those 3 hours.
But I remember saying to you, if I was to train someone and they don't want outside help, I'd actually charge them more because it's less enjoyable for me, because I know that client is not going to be actually conducting good results. So I get nothing out of it. So if I have a client that's checking in all the time, doing this, doing that, it's more motivating for me. They're going to get more from me. But if you're just coming to the gym and just doing a little bit and leaving and then throwing whatever food into you, like, it's not very motivating for us either.
Yeah, and drinking multiple days of the week and whatever else. But I think that's also a bit of a rite of passage for many trainers. Like, they have to almost work with every type of client, different degrees of competence, knowledge, adherence. But say you are getting a bit more experience, you are building your knowledge, your systems. I think to touch on I think hybrid coaching is a direction that many personal trainers, especially as they start to get more competent and more knowledge, 100% should go that way. Because I did the same thing. When we set up our original business, actually here, it was 2018, we set up what's called Better Body Collective. We actually still have that business on our trades license now. We switched free zones and set up a new trade license, made it a much nicer name than it was before, but Better Body Collective is what we kept. And back then, the whole goal of that whole business was, we saw a gap. It was like, well, there's these people that are offering this online thing, but it misses out the in-person. Yeah. And these people that are doing the in-person, well, how are they accounting for all of the stuff that they do outside of the gym in terms of their lifestyle, their habits, their behaviors, their mindset and identity, their nutrition, sleep, supplement, et cetera, everything. So it's like, well, there's all of this stuff that is ultimately going to dictate how well of a response we're going to get out of the stuff we do in the gym with them 2, 3, 4 days a week. Let's create a business where we handle all of this. And so we were one of the first businesses that I'm aware of, because back then there was no UP or whatever else. No. It was like, we were one of the first businesses we're aware of in Dubai that were like, right, we're going to take, in a commercial gym setting as well, because we were based out the warehouse gym at the time.
In a commercial gym setting, absolutely.
So we were just like, right, let's create something where we do both. And so we had packages where it was that, and we didn't at that time, because we were trying to build our business. We still had some people who we let do just PT. Maybe we could even tell from a stage of readiness standpoint, they weren't ready for the...
Yeah, you tell in the consultation, when you start asking them questions, they're like, oh, you're asking me about stuff that I don't want to talk about.
And for some, you can see that they're really intrigued by that and want to explore that. And for others, you can tell that, if I try to give them a weekly check-in to do and the sessions, that's too much to ask right now. Yeah. But let's work on that and build it. And most of the time, we would be able to eventually get them to doing that as well.
It's a slow process for those people.
I had some clients that all they ever did was one-to-one, but for them, that gave them value. And I think when I look back on it, I felt there was some clients in certain cases where I feel like I tried to really force them into the online. Yeah, it wasn't what they wanted. I think you can only essentially teach someone how to fish. You can only provide the options. You can lay them out and say, this really is what you need. But if they're not ready for it, they don't want to do it, or if they're
100%.
very resistant to it, you're just not going to be able to get that out of them. But that was the start for us. We realized that there was so much power to combining both approaches. And I think that if you're a personal trainer and you're not considering adding or at least upskilling yourself to get to a point where you can offer the hybrid approach, I think you really should like take the time to really build that.
Yeah, it's definitely a missing out, I think. And like, how many good online how many online coaches could you name that would deliver a really world-class like PT session?
Not many. And the reality is, how are you going to be able to do that unless you had the experience of the in-person first before going online?
Definitely.
And I know a few coaches that they would be able to do both. They do both very well, but it's definitely a rare skill. The ability to,
and also
I
like the fact that it keeps my feet on the ground. You know what I mean? It's like I'm always going to have this skill. Then it's not like I'm going fully online and then, let's say in 3 years' time, go train someone in the gym and I'm like, bloody hell, I forgot now to set up a leg press. You know what I mean? It keeps my foot on the ground, and I like being in the gym anyway. Like as I always have, so it's not an issue for me. But I think a lot of people are so desperate to get out of the gym and sit in an office. I'm like, that's not what it's about.
Technically, what online coaching ends up being, you just go back to having an office job again.
I don't understand it personally.
Yeah. I mean, I do to an extent, because I think there was, from a personality standpoint, there's two parts that I understand to an extent. I mean, you and I are on the same page because I've actually went back into doing a bit more in person because I feel like I get more fulfillment having more of that.
Exactly. I think that's it for me.
But for some people, they just don't feel like they've done it for a long period of time. They just feel like it either, and I do get it, like if you're spending time in the gym, it's also time you could be spending on your business or doing check-ins and working with more clients. So I get for some people, it's very much a practical decision. It's just, well, the business really takes off online, and it just, and I've spoken to so many coaches that like, I kind of miss the in-person a little bit, but they're just absolutely crushing it online. So just doesn't make sense for them to step back into that.
I do get that. Obviously, I'm not crushing it online, so I can't comment.
I've seen, well, even some coaches I've seen that do that, they do end up going, you know what, I'm going to bring my in-person down because I'll bring my online down because I want to go back to doing more in-person stuff. I've seen that as well. And so the key takeaway message from that is, I think it also has to align with what are your objectives for, from an altruistic standpoint in terms of how do you want to help people, how many people do you want to help, but then even just as important, what makes you feel fulfilled, what balance of delivery or what vehicles of delivery make you feel like you enjoy the way that you serve people. For me, I can't imagine just doing in person or just doing online. For me, it's that combination of the two just feels right.
No, I think that's
why I do it.
You obviously coach quite like high level kind of female athletes, and like I can imagine you get a good fulfillment of like when you show up and they're going into their show, they're doing a photo shoot. I know for a fact of like when I'm at my clients' photo shoots and you see how happy they are, and you kind of, you might be spraying the oil on them and making some jokes. Like that is going to build a connection. That's obviously going to, and that makes me feel good knowing I've got them there and you can see how happy they are. Yeah. If you just see the pictures, it's like, good job, mate. Check in next week. Reverse diet time.
And don't worry, that there are many online coaches out there that do a phenomenal job of doing client meetups and group shoots and things like that. And so I think
obviously that's one thing that I feel like if you're not doing that as well, like you're not going to build a community, are you?
Yeah, you're missing a trick, I think. Just to come back, because I realised we never touched on it, was in relation to what makes a strong delivery for an in-person session. Now, it's more just to summarise some of your points, but add another thing in is, I think you mentioned it, but it's something that I feel needs to be mentioned and given specific highlight is I don't feel that most trainers are very attentive during a session. Like you were mentioning, for example, okay, make sure you've got a training program periodized, that you've got a logbook, whether it's on an iPad, on an app, or on a Google Sheet, or even if it's old school pen and paper, whatever you use. I see some coaches in the gym with clipboards and papers and, they have their Filofax folders and their, and I'm like, but at least if they're tracking, that's great.
I'd rather they do that
than nothing at all. Exactly. So as long as you've got some form of method to track progression with the training, fantastic. But I just think that the level of attentiveness that trainers have to every rep of every set is not there. I just see that many trainers just honestly look like they'd rather be anywhere but in that session at that moment in time.
Obviously, you're talking about like cueing and spotting and kind of taking them through
everything.
Every
it's being attentive to, like you say, for example, whenever a client comes into a session, my first question is, how are you feeling today? I want to get a sense of where are they mentally and physically before they even start, because any adjustments I might make to that plan, that session for that day is going to be based on what, because I think one thing that there's many lessons from RTS that I've held on to, but one of the things that is often promoted as a message, which I think is so key, is you only get to work with what they give you on the day.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's multifaceted as well. It's not
100%.
just about what they are doing in terms of, okay, maybe they've got a joint niggle or whatever else, or maybe they've had a bad night's sleep, so they're just not going to be able to give you...
Have you ever sent someone home?
I've stopped sessions after like one exercise, for example, like, and just be like, do you know what? Listen, I'm not going to charge you for today, but it's not like, this is not going to happen. I even just very recently with one of my clients, one of my prep clients, the individual in question just been going through a bit of a tough time, bit of burnout essentially. We got to the third exercise and I was just like, we need to stop. It's like, you could just...
That's a really professional thing to do as well, of like being like, look, you're not in this session. And I think that is important as well.
Yeah, like you physically haven't got it to give me today. Like you can't give me what is required from the session, so we just need to... So I think attentiveness is a number of things. It's the being emotionally intelligent enough to be able to read the client when they come in the door and ask the right questions and adapt the training potentially according to that as well, not just at the start, but how they progress through it. But it's also just that actually being present. Like for me, I like to think of it as when my client's performing a working set, I'm in the set with them. Almost like feel every single rep. I'm almost feeling that the muscle they're working, I'm like really feeling, like wanting to feel, okay, this is where it is now. And as they get closer to failure, I'm almost trying to viscerally kind of feel like, what are they experiencing right now? And what do they need from me to make sure that they can take that all the way there? So of course, within that, if you're really in the set with the client, you're going to be able to gauge effort far better. You're going to be able to extract a lot more out of them, but you're also going to make sure that the mechanics is where it needs to be and stays the same towards the end in close proximity to failure, or at least as close to it as is feasible as it was at the start. So I think the being present part, it's just something I think that is one thing that if I see a coach and they're just super actively engaged in everything that the client's doing, you can see that their eyes are on the client. They're not looking around the gym, on their phone, whatever else. Like you can just tell that, right, that's a coach who really cares and they're in this. They're in this to really pull the best outcome and
the client will notice that
experience.
as well. They will notice
100%.
that, like whether they say it or not, like they will notice if you're being present and taking them through everything they need to be doing, not like chatting to other PTs or flirting with girls in the gym, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's like, you need to be like that, I feel, especially if they're paying you good amount of money as well.
Exactly. And I think it's funny, there just seems to be a correlation between trainers who are constantly pushing themselves to get better and apply new things. You don't have to ask them to be engaged because they want to observe, see what's going on in that set. Is that client making improvement? Looking at a little bit, okay, now we're increasing weight this week. How is that going to affect our execution, or is that going to stay on point? So it's almost like a constant gamification. You're constantly looking for, right, how can I add value?
Yeah.
And I think, sure, you can have a program. I've seen this. Trainers who have great knowledge, they've got their training program in place, but they're just not there. They're not there mentally. And so I think that if you can combine the systems, the knowledge, with that intentionality of being really present,
and
that for me is
do very well.
100%.
And you're going to retain your clients as well, I feel. And for me, it's always trying to, yes, you kind of do have to sell the next phase to clients, but also there is always going to be the next phase anyway. And you can't just be like, oh, this is your doing your fat loss phase, and then it's like, well, you're lean now, so what are we doing next? And it's like you've got to actually be like, you've got lean. This is the next 12 weeks of your plan. How many in-person clients do you reckon do this?
I think that's going to come down to skill and experience, and maybe this leads us on to a part two at some points. I feel like we're only just sort of scratching the surface of some of this stuff. But well, thank you for your time. This has been a fun conversation.
I'll see you Sunday, bro.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Fitness Rants podcast.
If you got value from this conversation, be sure to hit subscribe on either YouTube or your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any of our weekly rants.
Oh, and if you're feeling generous, we would really appreciate it if you would drop us a 5-star rating or a review, because it would help more listeners like you to find the show.
If you haven't already, be sure to connect with us on Instagram. We'll leave our handles in the episode description.
Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to having you back for our next episode.